and welcome to the April 27, 2020 Glendale City Council special meeting. Due to evolving situation with COVID-19 and health recommendations from LA County Health Department, the Glendale City Council meeting will be available to the public electronically. Due to social distancing requirements, the public will not be able to attend the meeting. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. This meeting can be viewed on local cable Charter and Spectrum Channel 6 and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. You may also stream online through our website, www.glendalecalifornia.gov. By scrolling all the way to the bottom of the web page and selecting live streaming, which is the third icon from the left. For public comments and questions during the meeting, call 818-937-8100. The phone number will appear on your screen soon, I guess. Please do not call in advance of the agenda item. City staff will be submitting these questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person during this meeting. With this being said, may I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Brotman.
Here.
Devine.
Here.
Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Mayor Agajanian.
Present. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Magrichian. Next item, please.
The agenda for the Monday, April 27th, 2020 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on Thursday, April 23rd, 2020 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Before I go to next item, I would like to read the name of those who are present in this chamber. Yasmin Beers, City Manager, is here. Mike Garcia, City Attorney, is here. I guess some they know him, but he doesn't need to raise his hand. Rubik Golanian, Assistant City Manager, is in this chamber. John Taktalian is here. Maybe you raise your hand because they may not know you. Okay. We have Silvio Lanzas, Fire Chief, is here. Anahit Mkchichian, Administrative Assistant, is here. I was reading these items for you. Jason Bradford, Chief Information Officer, is here. Okay. Hagop Hovsepian, Assistant Chief Information Officer, is present. Lizette Pagliacito is here. Sorry. Pagliacito, I guess. Did I say it right? I hope I said it right. I don't know. Next time I will practice more. Sorry for that. Now, also present in the chamber are Ms. Stephanie Landregen is here, and Mr. Aram Ajemian also is present. Thank you for being here. Now, the next item, please.
One is City Attorney regarding discussion of appointment to fill City Clerk vacancy. 1A is motion to appoint an individual to the position of City Clerk. 1B is resolution providing for the establishment of classification, title, and compensation for the elected executive level employee position of the City of Glendale City Clerk. And 1C is motion directing staff on filling City Clerk vacancy.
Thank you. I would like to start before we talk about the appointment. I'd like to talk about the salary of city attorney by
City Clerk.
City Clerk.
City clerk. I'm sorry.
don't
City
talk about
clerk,
salary.
not city. City clerk. And the reason I'm bringing this up because previously, city clerk had more responsibilities. They were handling the election of the city. It was last time, it was election of 2017, which city clerk was in charge of it, and then election of schools and, other Glendale College. However, I come back to the city of Glendale elections. Now there are less responsibility because LA County is handling the election of this city. So I would like to bring the issue up, and so the responsibility is less than before. So apparently the salary should be different than it was before. So I would like to hear from my colleagues. Anybody wants to comment on this? I start with Mr. Brotman.
Can you come back to me? I don't
Yes.
have a particular comment.
Yes, I will
I
go
agree
to,
that what we said
yeah, that's fine.
would be considered, yeah.
That's fine. I will go to Councilmember Najarian. Councilmember Najarian?
Yes, thank you. First of all, let's find out where the salary is. Can the city attorney explain what the total benefits package is, salary, any perks, vehicle allowance, communication device allowance, et cetera?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I can address some of it. I might need some help from city manager's office on parts of it. So the salary, the current salary for the city clerk position is $12,025.30 per month. That comes with, staff can probably help me out here a little bit. Obviously, health benefits. There is whatever executives receive in terms of other fringe benefits. There is a car allowance, I believe. There is. Is it on there? Oh, yeah, here.
Yes. Would you like me to cover it?
Yeah, would you?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, to fill in the questions here. So base salary is $12,025, as Mr. Garcia stated. As you know, this is an elected position, full-time. There is a monthly auto allowance associated with this position, and that's at $495 at the executive level. For a monthly stipend for a cell phone, that is $100 a month. There are vacation accruals that occur, as well as sick leave accruals that occur for this position, and those are about 13 hours for vacation and 8 hours for sick leave. This position does also have management leave that's associated with it, and that is at 100 hours. The medical plan, again,
Money-wise, that amounts to what? Can somebody tell me roughly what it amounts to?
typically, the benefit load associated with a management level position is around 50%. And so whatever that dollar amount is in terms of the salary, let's say the salary was $100,000, if you include all benefits, which includes the auto allowance, medical, some of the accruals in terms of time, that's about 50%, so it's another $50,000, give or take,
So in this case,
approximately.
you started with $12,025 per month,
Correct,
and so the benefit will be $6,000.
correct,
Okay.
roughly.
And so if we annualize that, that's about $216,000 a year.
Yes, it's 18,000, it's 216,000, that's
That's
correct.
correct.
Okay. So that being said, I would not be opposed to having a modest downward adjustment to the salary of that 12,000. Let's, I don't know, 10,000 perhaps.
Okay, so you're offering 10,000. Thank you. All right, are you done, Councilmember Najarian?
Is it too late for me to submit my name for city clerk? I'm joking. It's, and let's just repeat, when we talk about that salary, we're talking about someone who's not just an elected official as, with a response to, be responsive to the public, but also primarily a department head who runs a department with all those other tasks that we've discussed perhaps in the past, record keeping, oaths, there's the minutes of this meeting, and everything else. Am I correct, Madam City Manager?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Okay.
So I wouldn't mind a small, if you asked me, you did ask. I wouldn't object to a small downward adjustment of the salary.
Okay, can I, if you're finished, let's go to Councilmember Devine.
Well, I would tend to agree with that. I wouldn't object to a lowering of that salary, and I think even going to 200,000, between 200 and Councilmember Najarian said 10,000, 206, somewhere in between there. I think that would be more than fair.
Okay,
So, yes,
thank you.
you're welcome.
How about Councilmember Kasakian?
Well, I do think that, at the appropriate time, and if now's the time, I think that there's probably a more in-depth discussion that can take place in regards to the hours associated with certain tasks. I know that the city, in its practices and in its budget, has gone to the departments to be able to account for the number of hours spent on specific tasks. So I think that there's an exercise that we can do to specifically find out what the reduction is, both in dollar amount and hours, of having the responsibility of directly organizing the elections not be a part of this position. Generally, I'm not against a reduction, depending on what the amount is. I also worry about in the future, if there are candidates considering to run for this position, what type of candidates we can attract, depending on what that figure is. Again, it's a ballpark figure that, I think my colleagues are suggesting, and, I'd generally be in agreement with it. But I don't want it to be so low that in the future we don't attract the right type of candidates who want to seek that position.
Okay. Thank you. I would suggest, since everybody is in agreement, so may I suggest $10,000 a month? And then the benefits will end up to be $5,000. If it's 50% of the direct salary, then the benefits will be $5,000. So we end up with $180,000 per year.
Approximately.
Should I take a vote on this?
If you want a motion, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second? So $10,000 a month.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
A couple of
please.
things procedurally. So you do have the resolution, so you can make that motion as part of number 2 on the agenda. But I would also note that you do have a couple of speakers, and I'm not sure
Okay.
if they intended to speak on that part of the agenda item or the selection of the city clerk.
All
But
right.
you might want to check in with them, and then if they want to speak on the other item, you want to leave them on hold
They-
and bring them back.
No problem. So I'm going to line 1. You are on the air with mayor and city council members. Would you mention your name, please? I guess Susan Wolfson is on line 1. Can you hear me? Hello? Ms. Wolfson, can you hear me?
Try hitting the speaker button, Mr. Mayor. It's a little bit tricky up there, having done it for a little
Oh. No, it went off. Okay, we go, Ms. Wilson, call back again. You went,
Oh,
you are on the air with mayor and city council members.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Mike Mohill.
Yeah. This
Am
is,
I right?
hi, this is Mike Mohill. Good evening.
Good evening.
Having seen and worked with the city clerk's office many times through the years, you reducing the salary by $2,000 a month, I don't think is right or fair. First of all, what you're going to do, you're going to be setting a precedent for the future. And you always want to have the best qualified candidate. And if you don't offer enough money, why would somebody want to have that position? If you're a family man, you have 1 or 2 kids, $10,000 a month nowadays is not a lot of money with all the responsibility. Just because the person is not being responsible for the election that comes up once every 2 years to be responsible for, there's day-to-day operations that the city council people do not know. But you can ask Mr. Artie Kasakian, who has worked that position, and it's not just working off the city you're new of. You have to know the rules and regulations. Just to pick somebody who has no experience to work the job. I see you've had Miss Stephanie Langer.
Wait a minute. You want to talk about the salary?
okay, but you
Right
have
now,
to-
we are talking about the salary.
Okay.
The
so let's talk about
qualification,
the
you
sal-
can
okay.
call back.
All right. So saying with the salary,
Yes.
I don't think $10,000 is enough money for the responsibility because the person is supposed to be an executive. Would you want the city attorney have less money, or the city treasurer have less money? Okay, or the executive, let's say Steve Zern of GWP. By lowering the salary, you're lowering the responsibility and the importance of the job. Is that the intention of this city council? If the intention of this city council is to lower the importance of this position, shame on you. Because the people of Glendale want to have the best qualified candidate, not the best political appointment. Okay, so that's
Thank
it, and I'll talk about the other point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Council
This
Member
is a-
Kasaki.
This is a question more for the city manager and the city attorney. Is there anything that precludes the council from coming back and readjusting this salary at any point?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, there's not anything that limits the council from, it's an at-will position from adjusting the salary. Our recommendation was to, if you are going to make a change, to make it prior to or concurrently with the appointment, just so that it's, whoever is appointed knows what the salary is going to be going in. That was the recommendation. But no, as an at-will unclassified position, I do believe the council can make the adjustment subsequently.
Thank you. I want to go to the next.
Mr. Mayor?
I would like to go to the next caller. Councilmember Kasakian, you want to continue?
No, that was Councilmember
Thank you.
Brotman, but we get confused for each other all the time.
Thank you.
I was just going to make a comment, ask
Oh.
a question, but we can get through the callers first, and then we'll so. Let's wait.
Let's just wait. Let's go to the next caller. I come back to you. You are on the air with mayor and council members.
Hello. Hi, this is Susan Wolfson on the phone. Is it okay to talk about something other than the salary, or are we
No,
not
just
able
salary
to do
at
that?
this moment. We will get back to
Okay.
the next item, I
Okay,
guess,
then
a
I'll
little bit
go
later.
back
Am I
on-
right?
It's your discretion, Mr. Mayor. You can hear all the speakers speak on either of the items, on the appointment or the salary, or you can break
I
it up.
think I want to finish this salary business, then I go to the next item if you want to comment on position or any other issues. Maybe we do it after we finish at least this portion of it. You want to
Well-
hold the line, stay on the line?
Well, I
and-
guess I'll stay on hold then, because I'm not really talking about the pay.
Okay. Why you don't stay on the line?
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Oh. Apparently, I got She got cut off.
She'll call back.
Okay.
back.
Now, can I have a motion for the salary of, apparently we had this.
1 second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councilmember Brotman.
I was just intrigued by what Councilmember Kasakian said about doing some analysis to look at how the workload of the job has been, is impacted by the fact that we're not directly running the elections here. I think that idea of 10,000 a month seems, reasonable. But is there any way that we could get some information between now and tomorrow? I know that we could decide on the salary tomorrow after having seen that information, because I think that's a reasonable way to think about it. If the job has changed in scope, then it's reasonable to consider a change in the salary. And I guess I would feel a little bit better if I had that data in front of me.
Thank you. I just want to see anybody supporting to postpone this to tomorrow, or we want to do it right today. Is there any support for the idea from any council member? Yes, I heard none, so I have to continue. with-
May I again, just quickly, I want to check with staff whether we can get that information by tomorrow.
It's hard, it would be, I think, in a very narrative form, any information we got, just in terms of looking at the scope of duties that the clerk's office has, and then explaining what the change in, the election aspect of it, what change that's had. I don't know if we can necessarily have the data in terms of how many person hours and things like that staff was working on the election. I don't think we can have that information by tomorrow.
No, but the problem I see here, if we don't establish the salary, so you cannot ask the candidates to go along with selection, because they have to know what the salary is going to be. Otherwise, we have to postpone everything. You can't keep the salary issue for tomorrow and select somebody now.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Kazaki, Councilmember Kazaki.
so there's a couple of considerations here. Obviously, there's the one about associated with the responsibilities and tasks, understandably. But there's also the reality that we're also we collectively as a city, individuals, we're going to be having these robust discussions in the coming weeks in a situation where we're going to have to look at savings and all of us sacrificing something so we can keep ourselves solvent, afloat. So in that spirit, I'm still fine with the conceptual reduction of salary. And if at the time we find that, based on staff analysis, there are more responsibilities or duties associated with it. And also let's realize that along with elections, right now, this is how elections are run, and some duties have been taken from the city clerk, but there may be others that come into play. I mean, this is in the field of municipal government or in municipal governance, things are constantly changing. We moved our elections because we were told by the state that we would have to. Now we're seeing court cases that may tell us otherwise. So it's very hard to say what the city clerk's responsibilities may or may not be in the coming future. I do think that this is a fair enough starting point, and if we need to come back, we certainly can.
And
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
Mayor,
Ms.
this is
Devine.
Devine. I
Councilman.
agree with Councilmember Kasakian on a couple of the points, especially the fiscal responsibility. I think this is a good opportunity to think about that. And also, this is always something that we can come back to. And perhaps when the four-year election is coming up, the four-year term, we can revisit this and change our decision. But I think it's great points that he made.
All right, thank you. So before I go for roll call, maybe we would like to hear from the candidates. Is that?
It's It's up to you, Mr. Mayor.
Up to you.
So if you, the candidate, Ms. Landrigan, would you like to comment on this issue?
I think that falls under the things not to do in a job interview is having a higher salary right off the bat. But that's just me.
No, but in my opinion, if somebody may not like it, say, okay, I thought my salary will be 216,000, and now you're reducing to 180,000. Maybe the person does not want to go through this. That's why I'm trying to ask now, rather than later somebody comes back and says, well, I was willing to take the job, but now I don't want to do it. So I have to make sure that they are okay with this.
So it's a little late for that, I think.
So,
Ms. Landrigan? Landrigan?
yeah, just for the record, Ms. Landrigan is saying she doesn't wish to comment on.
I'm sorry, say again?
Ms. Landrigan is saying she doesn't wish to comment on that particular point regarding the salary.
Oh, you don't want to comment on this? You want to comment? No. How about Mr. Ajemian?
May I get to the point?
On this point only?
Yes. Mayor Ajanian, council members, the salary is fair, I would say. The one thing we missed was, even though we took away some aspect of the election, we were in our second phase of bringing in passports to the city, which the city clerk was going to handle. So that's a whole entire new game that you're bringing into the city clerk's department. So I wanted to mention that so everybody knows.
But you agree that
I
you
do,
don't have
definitely.
problem with it?
No, I do not.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Now we can have a roll call, please.
Did we get a motion in a
Did we
second?
get a motion in a second?
We don't have a second.
I guess.
You
did
need
we
a
do it?
second. You need a second.
I can second that.
So, yeah, just so the record, so the item at 1A2, the resolution, section 3 would be revised to establish the salary at $10,000 a month.
I'm happy seconding that.
That was my motion for the
Okay.
resolution.
We have motion and we have second. Now roll call, please.
Councilmember Brotman,
Yes.
Devine,
Yes,
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Agajanian.
Yes. Okay, now we go to the second part of our agenda, election or selection of new city clerk. So I start again with Mr. Brotman. You want to comment on this issue?
Sure. Well, I think the record already shows I've put Mr. Ajemian's name in the mix. I've nominated him, and my thinking when I did that was a few things. Is the fact that he has stated that he does not intend to run in 2 years, so this is consistent with what I and most of the rest of you said about not wanting to basically establish somebody in this position long-term by creating the power of incumbency. So that was one consideration I had when I nominated Mr. Ajemian. The other thing is we've been talking about fiscal pressures that we're going to be under, and I thought that we could potentially not backfill his position and see some savings in the clerk's office. I think that's a consideration that, we could change our minds. I mean, we could look at that, but at least I think that's, there's potential there. And lastly, he knows the job. We know him, and there wouldn't be any learning curve. And truly, I think the idea here is we don't want to have an election. We want somebody who can basically carry us through for the next 2 years, so that then we can, everybody can put their names in, and we can have a fair and open election. So that's why I put up his name in nomination, and and I plan to support him.
Thank you. Ms. Devine?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, you know, I'm proud to nominate Ms. Landrigan for the city clerk position. She has served in our city for 17 years on 3 different commissions. She has a master's degree and is working on a second master's degree in program management. She has a lot of fantastic qualifications for this position. As we all know, she has run for the city clerk office. So I know that she's done her research and she's aware of the functions, she's aware of the duties and the responsibilities. She has planning experience. She has 21 years of managerial experience. She has election experience. She has financial experience running $1 million budgets. She has an impeccable background in public service. And she's been appointed by a governor for a state commission and by assembly members. I think that this is an opportunity. We've had the same leadership in the city clerk's office for some 15 years. I think this is a great opportunity for us to get some fresh ideas into that office, into the position, some fresh leadership in the position. I think she has stated that she is not running in a couple of years or for the next election. So that was a good thing. I just feel that this is a great opportunity for our city. And plus the fact, if I must say so myself, and I wasn't going to mention this, but it would be nice to have another woman in a management position. But that's beside the point. I think Ms. Landrigan is a stellar candidate, and I'm proud to nominate her.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
can I just say one thing, because I forgot initially, and that was to say that I've met Ms. Landrigan, once, and we've talked on the phone a bunch of times, unrelated to this, and I'm very impressed with her. So I want that to be clear that I think she would make an excellent city clerk. I have no doubts. She has a very impressive background, and I think it's true that she would bring a fresh pair of eyes, and probably, that's always good in an organization. So I thought of all that. But my conclusion is I think it's appropriate for the voters to go through an election, make a decision about who they want, and then we can have those reforms if we need them, or those changes, or whatever it may be. If we want to take a different direction in the office, we can do that. But I think that should come through an election. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that, I think very highly of Ms. Landrigan. I think she would make an excellent city clerk. And it was a tough decision. So that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Sachin,
Mr. Mayor?
you want me to go to close?
My suggestion, the nominations have sort of been put in. My recommendation is both Ms. Landrigan and Mr. Jimin are here to address the council and also see if you have any questions. It's probably best to do that and then also take the speakers before having
council
further
members?
discussion. Pardon
They
me?
can't express the council members, and then I go to the callers
Well,
and...
I wouldn't want there to be an issue about that council members had a discussion before you've heard from the speakers.
Our council members, they are very brave. They can express themselves later too. I have no problem with that. Is that okay? We continue to get their opinion of council members, go to the phone calls, and then listen to the candidates.
My
Okay.
recommendation is to hear from the candidates, hear from the
Okay.
speakers, and then hear from the council members.
Since city attorney says to go to candidates, so I start with Ms. Landrigan.
Good evening,
evening.
Mayor Agajanian and
Good evening.
council members. Thank you for this opportunity. I have the great pleasure of being nominated by Ms. Devine for this important position. The city clerk's position is a very important position. It takes care of all of the information, and it's in the gateway for transparency for all of the activities that the council and other department heads actually pursue. I have reviewed the budget from the last year. I know budget activities are coming up. I also am aware of all of the intricacies that are involved. I'm aware that the Fair Political Practice Act and other political activities through the Secretary of State are necessary. And I have to say I appreciate what the present city clerk has managed to do and to make this office into. I would be more than honored to be appointed and to serve. And if you have questions for me, I presented my curriculum vitae as well as my letter of interest. And I have said that if you wish to appoint me, I will not run in 2 years, because I understand that is a concern of the council. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Anybody has question from Ms. Landrigan?
I have a question.
Councilmember Najarian.
So, Ms. Landrigan, are you stating, for me, let me just say where I'm at for everyone to hear, that I think the discussion of whether someone is going to run again in 2 years or not is not appropriate at this stage of the considerations. We had, going back to the city council selection, we had early on set forth certain criteria that we were taking into effect, but I don't want that to be an issue now, because number one, we can't do that, and we can't require that you not run. And if we throw that into the mix, we're dealing with something that I think is an inappropriate criteria to be applying to either of the candidates. There may be a third candidate, I don't know, but either of these two candidates. So I'm not into that. Let me ask just some general questions. I'm going to ask the same questions for Mr. Ajemian too. 3 years ago, after the 2017 elections, I had made some pretty strong comments criticizing the way our election went forward. Not so much the actual counting of the ballots and those duties that now the county has taken over, but the actual, let's call it the harvesting of ballots and the undue influence on certain voters, weaker voters, both in a mental capacity and in physical capacity, seniors, shut-ins, etc. Is that a concern for you? And if it is, what steps would you take? We'd be talking about the next election, let's say, that, so it would be the 2022 election. What steps would you take to ensure that there is no undue influence in ballot harvesting, and actually sometimes in the ballot places themselves of people exerting influence to vote one way or the other?
Councilmember Najarian, I have participated in being a ballot watcher as well as a precinct captain, as well as a poll worker for the County of Los Angeles. It's a very important duty that we have. I mean, it's an extremely meticulous job. At the time, each of the ballots and the ballot tabs have to be accounted for, so there's no tomfoolery, shall we say. But I have also seen a lot of assistance for voters that would be difficult to police, because there are many people who have other languages and other needs, and it was not my place to make judgment on the fact that somebody was helping them. But it did seem a lot. I have no solution at the moment, but I would be willing to talk to the council about what might be some appropriate ways to put some fail-safes in for the vote. The vote is fragile, and it can be manipulated, and we are working very much these days on virtual trust, and virtual trust is something that's going to happen when we do our balloting probably in this November. And each of us has to be responsible for protecting our democracy and working together to figure out ways to do it better. I would have to seek help from everyone who has complaints and see how those complaints might be able to be addressed.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there more questions for Ms. Landrigan?
I have a couple of questions. I
Councilmember
will
Devine.
be asking both candidates the same questions. Thank you. Thank you. Can you describe what you think the role will be as the city clerk for 2 years? A placekeeper or someone who will take some action? And number two, do you believe that there are any opportunities that need, or I'm sorry, operations that need improvement, and how would you address those?
I believe that if one chooses to keep the clerk's office as a maintenance element, it depends on who you have maintaining it. Do you really think my question is, do the voters of Glendale believe that the city clerk's office should just be maintained, or it should grow? It should serve in manners and ways that technology is taking us right now that we have never thought about before as public servants or as public presenters. And I think that it's very important that we look at this new digital world, this new world where we are having to be separated, and how are we going to communicate to the rest of the citizens of Glendale what we are going to proceed to do. We have many, many blogs, little neighborhood blogs that happen, that all of us read, that talk in many different languages and many different nuances. And I believe that we have to be involved in some of these small channels and working with those channels and helping focus them so that we are responding as the leaders of Glendale and not necessarily being left behind because technology has left us in the dust. Did I answer your questions, Councilmember Devine?
That was the second part of it was the technology, the way of addressing how anything in the operations that you think needs to be improved, or was that it, the technology?
I believe that there are many people in the clerk's office who have ideas. I think there are people who are in the executive offices, staff who have ideas. I think the clerk's office needs to listen to those and see if some of them are worthy of being implemented. I think when you think in those terms, instead of just keeping and staying the course, I think we should be doing more than staying the course. We should be setting the course. We have other technology issues for other cities have interpreters for those who are deaf, and so we have missed some opportunities there that I think we should be looking at. Our ADA compliance may not be where it should be. I would like to look into that. Those are some of the areas that I really feel that are areas that could use improvement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kasakian, do you have any question?
You know, where to begin? I think that Ms. Landrigan has done a tremendous service in her own right in the fields that she has focused on. But, you know, there are a number of things in her statements that, as they pertain to the city clerk's office, I take exception with, because I do think that the department has been a leader in the region. And that's evidenced by the fact that, you know, just most recently, thanks to the efforts of the city clerk's office and our collective work, including the staff that's there, we were able to get a law signed by the governor that changed the order of the ballots. That was, you know, praised by the LA Times. But, you know, in terms of, you know, talking to different community groups and blogs, I'm really at a loss as to what Ms. Landrigan is specifically talking about. So perhaps she can expand on that for me.
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Kasakian. There are visible individuals who are on some of the blogs, and I'm not on every blog, thank you, that have input from Councilmember Najarian, Councilmember Brotman. I've seen Council Member Devine's responses. And
Are you referring to nextdoor.com?
yes, I am referring to nextdoor.com. And what I think is that there are areas where we need to just be proactive and responsive, and that's not easy to do. And that is something that I think is going to have, there are going to be more of these channels than not as we continue in our COVID response.
How you do realize that participation on those blogs, particularly by individuals, is restricted by geographic location?
Yes,
Or
I
no?
do.
And it's not just this department, but a number of cities and agencies, including our own police department, have worked long and hard to build up the relationships to be able to access those platforms, which are third-party platforms.
I am aware of that, and they do a great job.
Thank you. Councilmember Najarian, did you ask all your questions?
I just want to say, not Mr. Ajemian yet, but I'm not bringing the gender card into this. For decades, the position has been held by a woman, and we finally got a gentleman on there for 15 years, Mr. Kasakian, who has done a fine job. And the gender of the applicant has absolutely nothing to do with my thoughts on who should hold. I'm going for the best person.
Yeah.
You're blind.
I agree with that, Mr. Najarian.
I know you're saying it tongue in cheek, but
I know,
I just have to say that.
of course.
I guess, thank you. Let's hear from our
Thank you,
other,
Mayor.
thank you very much.
council members.
Other candidate, Mr. Ajemian. So,
Mayor Agajanian and council members, thank you.
Yes.
I was trying to keep notes while they were talking, the council members. I'm sorry, I think I got all the questions. So I'd like to say, Councilmember Najarian and Councilmember Devine, great questions. One of the questions you brought up was practice of harvesting ballots. Correct, they are wrong. The way we can stop that from happening is education, working closely with the city manager's office, city attorney's office, having more staff in the city clerk's department during our election, and also working closer with our County of Los Angeles. The next question was, I think by Devine, Councilmember Devine, was what are we supposed to do with or the question was more about technology, if I'm not mistaken. So we in the city clerk's office in the last 7 years, we've worked on several different projects, one of which was bringing a new PRR system, which is a public record system, into the city clerk's department. We are now working into a newer system where we can have a newer, updated version of the public records system. We've also have a new agenda management system here. That took us a few years to do, but with our great staff, we were able to do it, and we are working on it now continuously. I think there was some other questions. I think Councilmember Devine asked was, this position for me is a placeholder for 2 years. After that, whoever is willing to run can go ahead and run. But I do have a statement that I've written that I would love to read. I think I got all the questions, if I'm not mistaken, council members.
Is there any question for Mr. Ajemi?
Well,
Councilmember Devine.
My question, yes, my question was not about technology at all. It was about if you believe that there are any opportunities to help that you need to improve the department. How would you proceed to address issues that you think are necessary?
I think
Changes that are necessary? Or do you think everything is just great?
I think in the city clerk's office, working closer with the other departments as well, what I'm referring to is the city manager's office, and the city attorney's office is a way of enhancing and making the city clerk's department work more effectively and more efficiently.
Thank you. Mr. Brotman, Councilmember Brotman, do you have a question? Or you already asked?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Ardi Kasakian, Councilmember, do you have questions?
I don't want to put folks on the spot more than they are, and I want to just simply thank Aram for his years of dedicated service to the city. I know that it would have been difficult for me to do my job as city clerk at various times were it not for his knowledge and experience of all the departments, his knowledge and experience with the city's budget and how it works specifically for the city, and mostly for his contacts within the city clerk field. A lot of times when questions come up, your colleagues are the best resources for you to develop an answer or a solution to a challenge or a problem. And I know that, as a certified municipal clerk and having attended conferences with him, I think he has brought fresh perspectives and ideas, and I thank him for that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is no question, I go to the callers.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Mr. Ajemi did ask if he can make a statement, so.
You want to make another statement?
Yes, I've written a
Okay,
statement,
welcome.
if I can read it, please.
All right.
It is a great honor to be considered as the interim city clerk with the city of Glendale. I assure you and the public that my concern is for the well-being of our city at this time of crisis. I look forward to fulfilling the duties of the clerk, and upon completion will look forward to resuming my post to help whomever the citizens of Glendale elect to do the job well and guide our operation. I want to thank each and every one of you for believing in me and giving me this opportunity. I promise I will give it my all and try my very best. This organization and the city it serves is my second family, and I care deeply and want nothing but the best for it. I thank you.
Thank you. So, you are on the air with mayor and city council members. Ms. Wolfson, I guess you're on the line.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you. Good evening, City Council members, city staff, and others. I am Susan Wolfson, Southern California native and Glendale resident. First, I want to thank you. I know this is not on the agenda, but I want to thank you for the work you are doing to keep our city safe and as operational as possible. I also want to thank you for erring on the side of caution with respect to social distancing. There have been no published studies of COVID-19. There hasn't been time yet for scientists to determine which measures will protect the public health, and we can't even accurately determine the true incidence of the infection, so taking the cautious approach makes a lot of sense. Now, for my main reason for addressing you tonight, as you consider how to fill the unscheduled city clerk vacancy, please consider the following cogent facts. We already have a dedicated city employee, Autumn Ajamian, who has recent experience with fulfilling these duties. Over the past 3.5 years as a two-time city council candidate and as a Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commissioner, I've had numerous occasions to work with Mr. Ajamian. He has always been courteous, professional, and clearly knowledgeable. Additionally, we have seen Mr. Ajamian act as city clerk at numerous council meetings over the past several years when current council member Kasakian was absent. Mr. Ajamian has always performed these duties well. Therefore, in the interests of a smooth transition with the least amount of on-the-job training for the individual filling the vacancy, Mr. Ajamian is the best choice. Our city is large enough to require a full-time city clerk. Not only does the city clerk perform the duties of attending all city council meetings and doing the minutes, he or she administers numerous other functions, including responding to public records requests, managing required reporting requirements for the city and its elected and appointed officials, working with higher elected officials, setting records, retention standards and policy, and representing our city to other local agencies. Even much smaller cities than Glendale have full-time city clerks and provide their clerks with subordinate staff. Additionally, our city charter requires that the Glendale city clerk be an elected position to provide check and balance on the power and authority of council. And this type of control is what has made American democracy great, and we erode it at our own peril. In summary, we have only 22 months, not even 2 years, before the next time we elect a new city clerk. We have someone on the job who is ready, able, and willing to step in as acting city clerk, qualified on day one to fulfill the duties. Therefore, and we saw him tonight, by the way, speaking eloquently, so therefore, please appoint Autumn Ajamian to complete the vacant term. Thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts and for your courageous service during these difficult times.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're on the air with mayor and city council members.
Hello there.
Yes.
My name is Mike Mohill. Council members, last week on April 14th, you decided to take up Councilman Devine's idea of each one of you nominating a qualified, underline the word qualified candidate for our next city clerk. Tonight the public will see, or has seen, who you have selected as the most qualified for this supposed to be non-political position. About 14 years ago, Councilman Artie Kasakian then was elected city clerk and worked closely with Autumn Ajamian, the record administration analyst. One of the many functions of Mr. Ajamian from time to time has been to assist the city manager and mayor in conduct council meetings. Each one of our council members has seen Mr. Ajamian quietly perform his position, treating every visitor to the city clerk's office or at council meetings with most respect. According to Patricia Olds, of the Clerks Association of California, the city clerk position is bound by statutory requirements and a bevy of federal and state laws, and therefore any political appointees should not be considered. We do not need a candidate who needs on-the-job training. Candidate Langerfin has run for the city clerk's position twice in the past, and the voters have voted her down. Mrs. Langerfin tonight spoke in generalities with no hands-on experience. Councilman Devine and Councilman Najarian are playing games. The livelihood of longtime employee Autumn Ajamian, a non-political person who happens to have the hands-on knowledge of city government and deserves to be appointed to the position of city clerk. Last week, Councilman Najarian and Councilman Devine belittled, mind you, belittled Mr. Ajanian rather than offer him the position of city clerk. If at the end of the day Mr. Ajanian is not the chosen one, then he would be training his replacement, a friend of politician Najarian and Devine. So much for ethics and fairness in government. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm glad to hear that the real Mr. Mohill has returned from that brief departure from his previous demeanor.
Thank
Or
you.
Mr. Nice Guy.
Councilmember Devine, did you have any statement to make? Or you're,
No, I'm waiting to hear from the mayor.
okay.
Thank you.
As I mentioned before, I'm against appointing anybody for any position. This is, and the reason being is that, in all fairness, I see whoever comes forward, gets involved with the election and gets elected. I like that better because even though both candidates, they mentioned they are not going to run, we know we can't stop them. And as I said, my worries are after a while, the candidates, they forget. There will be hundreds of emails, hundreds of calls, and they beg the person to run. This is what my experience on other cities, which I have seen before. So I'm reporting these issues all the time on the TV every night, 7 days a week. And then eventually candidate says, well, because they all ask me, so how I can go against all these people who are supporting me. And then they put their name for the following election. So I hope what our candidates are saying, they will stick to it. I do not like to appoint anybody. I mentioned before and I repeat. But now this is where we stand and I can't say anything. So based on what they gave me, can I call for the way Exhibit 1 says, call for, vote for
Mr.
one?
Mayor?
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councilmember Kasaki, I just have one question. You actually bring up an interesting point, and I would like to ask a question of both candidates. Have either of them ever endorsed candidates running for city council or any other city office? We know that Ms. Landrigan has run for city clerk, that was mentioned, but I'd like to know if either of them have endorsed anyone.
Endorsed any council member, you mean? Did you ask?
Any candidates. I mean, it could be a council member, it could be someone who
Okay.
can and lost. I'm just-
Mr. Ajemian.
Is this relative to the conversation?
I mean, it's just a
believe so.
council member question. I mean, doesn't mean anything. I don't think what we have to rely on the answer, but it's a question.
Mayor
I will
Agajanian,
let-
council members, Councilmember Kasakian, no, I have not.
So by virtue of your position, you could not endorse anybody. Am I right?
I could not, and I wouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
But let me interject, and to be fair, I mean, I want full disclosure. Are you on the GEA, Aram? Sorry, the GCEA board?
No, I am not. I am on the GMA board.
GMA. So
Correct.
did you play a part in
We did not endorse anybody during this time of election.
about 3 years back?
I was not on the board at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Lanigan?
Thank you for that question. Councilmember Kazaki and I have endorsed many political candidates in my many years of living, and I will continue to do so. I believe that the individuals who are running for office that ask for your support have the right to have citizens support them, and that is a part of democracy, and I'm happy to have done so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, I'm sorry, kind of a difficult question because the candidates have been on different positions in the past, so it's, however, I have a phone call. I think I can.
It's up to you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you can cut off speakers at some point, though, if you
All right.
if you want, since you're in discussion now.
You're on the air with mayor and city council members. Would you mention your name? Hello,
I don't think we have another call.
you are on the air? Hello? I think I see the person is on
Good
the
evening.
on
Good
the
evening,
line. Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Leonard Minukin, longtime Glendale resident. I'm calling tonight to speak on the matter of the appointment of the city clerk. Last year, we had this discussion about appointment versus special election, and I spoke then against appointing any member who, by our charter, ought to be elected, and I do so again at a time when our government should become more open, more transparent, and the members of the community ought to have a greater voice in the leaders of their community. Unfortunately, we are reverting to appointing individuals. The problem here is the individual in question, Mr. Jemian, is a very affable, very professional, very likable, and liked individual, and liked by me, among many others. But at the end of the day, it is the principle set out in our charter that ought to take the day, which is the people of the city ought to elect their city clerk. In point of fact, I would suggest that we need to widen the scope of who is elected in our city beyond the city clerk and members of the city council. But here we are dealing with an office which ought to be and is, by the mandate of our charter, to be elected. And I submit to you, we need to stick to the principles of our charter and do so consistently. And as I said it last year, we ought to know the value of our democracy rather than quibble about the price of a special election or the conveniences of an appointment. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you
and
very
I
much.
appreciate your service. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You are on the air with mayor and city council members. State your name, please.
Yes, Lorraine Mohill.
Yes, please. Go ahead. Ms.
Yes.
Mohill?
Yes, thank you very much. I was just wondering, and I would like to know if Ms. Landrigan had supported any of the council members or the mayor in the last election.
Well, a little bit earlier, I said Ms. Landrigan was free to endorse anybody. I mean, she was
No,
not
I was just
employee of
wondering
City
if
of
she
Glendale.
had-
But however, Ms. Landrigan, you want to answer?
If she had endorsed anybody in the last two elections.
Mr.
Mayor, Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Mayor.
Any
just a
councilman.
question posed by somebody from the public, and if Mrs. Mohill is done with her comments, you can have candidates answer that question,
I
or
did-
you
you don't
cannot.
have to.
Or you don't
wants-
have
I
to.
will ask the candidate if she wants to answer. You don't
Thank
have
you.
to, but if
Thank
you want
you.
to answer the question. Would you like to answer the question? But I said, okay.
Mr. Mayor, when you ran for office, I supported you. Recently, I did support 3 individuals who are running for office, Ms. Devine, Mr. Brockman, and also your nominee for one of the commissions, Mr. Greg Astorian.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any
Thank
more
you.
comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we came to end of this process. If there is no comments by council members, so.
Mr. Mayor.
I will-
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Just
sir.
quickly, the nominations do have to be placed, and I did hear Ms. Devine make the nomination for Ms. Landrigan, and I heard Mr. Brotman, or Councilmember Brotman, make the comment that he had put his name in nomination, but actually has to be made here tonight in the meeting. And then at that point, council can have further discussion, or you can move straight to a vote. It's up to you.
I would
And
like to go.
make any of the nominations you choose.
I would go ahead with Exhibit 1, which has been presented to me. And I will ask to first vote on one and then go to the next
Mr.
one
Mayor,
if it's.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, as I note,
1 second, city attorney
Sure.
wants to advise.
As I noted in the report and have noticed previously, so once nominations are placed in, once nominations are made, the rules of, the Roberts rules and the rules that govern our meetings requiring a motion and a majority vote would require that once the nominations are made, then once it's time for roll call, you don't do them one at a time. When a roll call is taken, when a council member's name is called to give his or her vote, then that council member will vote for the candidate that they support. So rather than going first with one and then going with the second, unless the council chooses to change that process. But what's required under Robert's rules and our own rules is to do it in that manner. That's how we do it for the mayor and for other positions when there are nominations and there's more than one nomination. To put the nominations in, close the nominations when it's time, and then take roll call with each council member voting for the candidate that he or she supports.
Okay, if there would be lots of candidates, then how you would do that again?
You would just, there would be votes, and then if there was not a majority vote, then the council could then have a discussion about narrowing the candidate pool, or they could, have a further discussion to try to convince, change each other's mind essentially.
All right. So the way you are explaining now, every council member will name his or her choice,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And then at the end, we'll see how many vote one candidate versus the other half,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Okay, let's do that.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question
Yes, please.
for the city attorney.
Yes, go ahead. Councilmember Najarian.
What happens if there's a tie?
So if there's a tie, that's no action. And then at that point, the council can, again, have a further discussion to try to break that tie, can take another roll call, can decide a process to change the way the voting is done. The council can, if there's, I think with two candidates, it's unless there's an abstention, you won't have a tie. But if there was an abstention, or if you have more than two candidates, for example, the council can decide on a process to eliminate the candidate with the least amount of votes before doing another roll call. So there's a number of ways to do it. But if there's a tie, if there's not a majority vote in the first vote, so there's not three council members supporting any one candidate, there's no action, and then the council will have to have a further discussion on how to fill the vacancy.
What's our deadline
April
for
3rd.
appointing
April
forced into an election?
April 30th.
Thursday.
Correct.
That Thursday.
Correct.
So let's just say, for sake of argument, that I really wanted to have an election. I could sit out and watch this tie run out the clock for an appointment, and then we'd be forced into an election.
That's correct, essentially.
I
Although,
hope that doesn't happen. But
and I think we do too, given, there was consent, unilateral,
I hope that doesn't happen.
right. I would just note there was unanimous consensus to do the appointment process, and so I think the hope is, the expectation is that there will be some decision, if not tonight, either tomorrow or later in the week.
Okay. So I guess roll call now.
Can I just make, I didn't, Councilman Brotman or anybody, was there?
Yeah, I hereby enter Mr. Demian's name into the, how do I say it?
You nominate Mr. Jimmy.
Demian for city clerk.
Okay, and I heard previously Councilmember Devine nominate Ms. Landrigan. So, Mr. Mayor, it's up to you whether council has further comments or if you want to go straight to a vote.
I don't know if any council member has any more statement to make?
I do. I just want to thank both candidates for the bravery in putting your names forward. It's not an easy thing to be held up to public spectacle and questioned and sliced and diced. And for those who, the small side issue, those who think that the power of incumbency is almighty, I can go through a list of council members who were incumbent and did not get reelection. Plumlee, Yusefian, Reyes, Weaver, Draymond, and more. So the Glendale voters, I think I handed to them that they're not afraid to throw out an incumbent if they see someone that they like better.
Thank you for the comment. Okay, we'll do the, yes.
Councilmember Brotman.
So what are we doing? We're giving a name now, right?
Yeah, give me the name of the candidate you support.
Okay, Mr. Ajemian.
Councilmember Devine.
Landrigan,
Kasakian.
I'd like to thank, by the way, Councilmember Brotman for making this recommendation and actually is crystallizing some of the same thoughts I had. So with that, Mr. Ajemian, thank you.
Najarian.
Landrigan,
Mayor Agajanian.
I will vote for Mr. Ajemian, that who has the experience in that department, but I feel so bad because my intention was not to appoint anybody in that position. If there is an open seat, people, they have their hope and aspiration, so I would like to see that they run, not to do this. Anyway, my vote will be for Mr. Ajemian anyway. Thank you. Are we done?
Thank you.
Are we done with this?
Adjournment.
Oh, yes, please.
I'd like to, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
yes, I'd
Ms.
just
Devine.
like to congratulate Mr. Ajemian and thank Ms. Landrigan for putting her name in and being willing to work with the staff and the city for the betterment of our great community. Thank you.
I just want to add to that, Ms. Landrigan, you did a very good job in this city, and I feel bad that you didn't get the position anyway. But still, I appreciate what you have done for this city. I know you for such a long time, and hopefully you will continue the great job you are doing and helping the city. Thank you.
Adjourn.
Okay, is there any more comments?
Oh, they-
Okay.
they just adjourned.
Yes, city, yes.
Can I have a motion for adjournment?
So
Is there a second?
second.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.